I'm Michelle, and welcome back to the Canadian History of Chronology channel. Today's episode, number 8, is about first contact with the Europeans, starting with the Vikings. And just as a reminder, as I mentioned in an earlier video, North America was not uninhabited. The First Nations peoples were living, thriving, and creating cultures here for about 10 to 15,000 years prior to first contact. And just as another side note before starting, the term Viking is a generalization. That term is normally used to describe the Norse raiders in their longships. It's more accurate to describe these Europeans as Norse or Norsemen, but either term is clear enough for this video. Okay, let's start with this question. Were the Vikings really the first to encounter the New World before Columbus's famous voyage of 1492? Remember, Columbus was looking for a western path to the Orient. The Europeans didn't know there was land to their west. They simply thought there was just a vast ocean that circled the globe. Now, were the Vikings the first? Well, actually, there are several other contenders for the title of who came to the New World first. Unfortunately, they left no proof. Their voyages are either legends or found in stories in some old texts. The list of the who, though, is rather extensive. There are Irish monks, ancient Hindu travelers, Greek explorers, English noblemen, Phoenician traders, Chinese settlers, Hebrew prophets, Polynesian seafarers, and even the lost tribes of Israel. But a fact we do know is that Irish monks reached Iceland before the Vikings did. But did they continue west to reach North America? A 9th century Latin text titled Voyage of St. Brendan the Abbot describes St. Brendan sailing west and encountering ice floes, sounding somewhat similar to the icebergs off Newfoundland. But, and this is a big but, he also writes of talking whales and an island full of birds that sang in Latin. So who do you believe? So, without any solid evidence, most historians agree that the Vikings were the first to make landfall and establish a settlement in the New World. And the Vikings left archaeological evidence. And also remember that any images I provide here are either artistic renditions or much later images. Anyways, it all started with Eric the Red. He sailed from Iceland and led the first Viking expedition to Greenland in AD 982. Eric then established a colony there 4 years later. Then, Leif Erikson, Eric the Red's son, set sail around the year 1000 in search of new lands. He and his men sailed west and landed on Baffin Island, which he named Helluland. It was a barren place. Turning southwest, they came to the coast of Labrador, which they named Markland. He then continued further south and 2 days later sighted land again. Leif named this new place Vinland due to its forests, natural resources, and warmer climate. He filled his ship with lumber from there and returned to Greenland, where lumber was scarce. Then Leif's brother, Thorvald, returned to Vinland. He set up temporary camps as they searched for possible settlement sites. Here they met the locals, which they called Skraelings, or barbarians. These Skraelings were likely the ancestors of the Innu, or Inuit. It's unknown for sure. Anyways, Thorvald and his crew came upon 9 natives one day, attacked them, and killed all but one who escaped. The natives returned in force, and Thorvald was killed by an arrow. This is the first recorded contact between natives and Europeans and set the stage for what was to come in later centuries. But it didn't end there. Another expedition of Norsemen came around 1012 in 3 ships with 160 settlers and livestock, most likely landing in Newfoundland. Relationship with the natives was up and down. There were battles and there was trade. Even today, Norse materials and artifacts have been found in several northern Inuit communities. Then, due to bad weather and the constant threat of attacks from the Skraelings, the Norse eventually abandoned their Vinland colonies. Now, the story I just told here were handed down in the Icelandic sagas that were written around the year 1200 to 1220. Then, to back up the Icelandic sagas, in 1960, a nearly 1,000-year-old Norse settlement was discovered in Las Omedos on the northern tip of Newfoundland. All of this shows that the Vikings predated Christopher Columbus by about 500 years. But it's important to note that the Vikings are just a footnote in Canadian history. Fascinating for sure, but still just a footnote. Whereas Christopher Columbus's exploration of 1492 and later had huge impacts. His voyages to the Caribbean islands in Central and South America changed the world forever. Well, that's it for the short history of the Vikings of the New World. Please stay tuned for more on First Contact with Episode 9, John Cabot. And remember, at any time, feel free to leave comments or questions below, and I'll do my best to respond to them all. And please, be a true Canadian and be polite. And if you like this content, please subscribe to my channel and give it a thumbs up. And hit the bell if you'd like to be notified of any new content. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.